This is the story of the Ugly Duckling. In a quaint country village on the water's edge, there lived a mother duck who sat on her nest, patiently waiting to hatch her ducklings. Soon the eggs cracked and out popped 6 tiny heads. The mother duck felt very proud until she looked at her last duckling. Oh my, he wasn't at all like the others. His bill was long and crooked, and drab gray feathers stuck out in all directions on his misshapen little body. He was really an ugly duckling. Now, when the mother duck took her little ones to meet the other ducks in the yard, they poked fun at the odd-looking duckling. They teased him and bit him. Even his own brothers pushed him about and refused to play with him. This made the ugly duckling so unhappy, he decided to run away. The poor ugly duckling had many adventures in the months that followed. For one thing, he joined a flock of wild ducks who were entranced by his ugliness. And then one day, the ducks were shot down by hunters. But when the hunters' dogs caught sight of the ugly duckling, they turned and scampered away. "I'm so ugly, even a dog won't bite me," thought the lonely little duckling. As the days grew colder, the duckling grew sadder. He would just sit in the marshes and watch the beautiful swans flap their white wings and fly south to warmer climates. And soon the water began to freeze and surround the ugly duckling with blocks of ice. It would really be too sad to tell of all the suffering the ugly duckling had to bear during the long winter months. But somehow he managed to pull through it. When the spring came, he sat quietly in the marshes, glad at least to feel the warm sun again. And after a while, he lifted his wings, which seemed ever so much stronger now, and they whisked him off to a huge garden. Now the ugly duckling was beginning to take courage, until he noticed the lovely white swans flying back from the south. The sight of these beautiful birds reminded him of his ugliness all over again. "I'll fly to these big swans," thought the duckling. "They'll pull me to pieces because I'm so ugly. But I'd rather die than live in misery all the time." So the ugly duckling flew into the pond and swam toward the swans. As he bowed his head in readiness, lo and behold, he saw his image in the water. At first he couldn't believe his eyes. So he looked again. Yes, it was true. He was no longer a misshapen, ugly gray duckling with a crooked bill. He was a beautiful swan with smooth white wings and a long, slender neck. The big swans gathered around him and stroked him with their bills, as if to welcome him into the fold. And then some children ran into the garden. And as soon as they discovered the new swan, they clapped their hands in joy. And when he saw them point to him and heard them say that this was the most beautiful of all the swans, he raised his graceful white neck in thankfulness and thought, "How fortunate I am. I once was an ugly duckling, and I never dreamed I could find such happiness." Would you like to take a trip around the world? Then come along and travel with me on my magic carpet to see many fascinating sights in far-off lands. Hold on now as we soar out over the Hudson River, across New York Harbor with the Statue of Liberty. Hold on tight as our magic carpet whisks us clear across the Atlantic Ocean. And already we're passing over the English coastline. Listen very carefully, and you'll hear one of the grand marches used at the coronation, Pomp and Circumstance. And down there below us is the City of London. And there, look, the big clock they call Big Ben. And over there, Westminster Abbey. And as we look very closely, we'll see the changing of the guard. Look how straight the soldiers stand at attention. Now we're off again, over the choppy waters of the English Channel. And there's the French coastline. Over the rocky shore we go, over tiny farmhouses down below, to the beautiful city of Paris. Paris with its broad boulevards and the Eiffel Tower, and over there the beautiful Arch of Triumph, a monument to peace. Paris is not only a beautiful city, but the people of Paris are friendly and full of fun. What's that below us? Look, a group of boys and girls like yourself, dancing to Frère Jacques and Alouette. Listen. Hold on now as we complete the last half of our journey. We're flying faster now on our magic carpet. Look below, the Vienna woods in full bloom. Now we're over Vienna, and below the beautiful Prater Gardens on the banks of the blue Danube River, decorated with the loveliest red chestnuts you've ever seen. And what lovely lilacs and red roses. Don't they smell nice? Let's listen to the children's orchestra as the concertmaster leads them with his shiny baton. Beautiful music, the Blue Danube. But whoosh, we're off again, and already we're over another big city. See the water in the streets. Why, every street is a river. They're called canals. And those boats, well, they're gondolas. Everyone travels about on these canals in gondolas as you take a taxi. In fact, they can't walk anywhere because there's not even a sidewalk. It's all water. Yes, you've guessed the name by now. This is Venice, one of the most beautiful cities in all Europe. As we fly over Italy, we pass through Florence with its beautiful museums and tall churches, and Rome, the eternal city. Then to Naples and Sorrento. And the music we're listening to now is Come Back to Sorrento. guess you know where we are now. Yes, boys and girls, we're back in America, flying over Atlanta, Birmingham, Dallas, and Fayetteville, such cities as Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, and Syracuse, over Los Angeles, Denver, Helena, and Cedar Rapids. We're back over the United States and back home again.
From sea to shining sea. We're the merry men of Sherwood Forest. We're as happy as can be. We have lots of fun till day is done as we sing so merrily, as we sing so merrily.
Many years ago, in the days of King Richard the Lionhearted, there lived in Nottingham, England, a man named Robin Hood and his band of merry outlaws. They lived in the forest and ate of the king's venison and drank October ale. If ever a stranger should pass through the forest, he would hear the merry men and Robin Hood singing off in the distance this jolly ditty.
We're the merry men of Sherwood Forest. We're as happy as can be. We have lots of fun till day is done as we sing so merrily, as we sing so merrily.
But don't think that everything was always happy for Robin Hood. The mean and wicked sheriff of Nottingham was always plotting a way to capture Robin Hood and his band of merrymen. One day he hit upon a plan. "I'll have an archery contest," said the sheriff. "Robin Hood will not be able to resist the chance of proving to everyone that he is the greatest of them all." When word of the contest reached Robin Hood, he enrolled immediately. "But wait," cried one of his merry men. "If you go to Nottingham, the sheriff is sure to capture you." "Ah, my good man," said Robin Hood, "I will go in the disguise of a poor beggar, and I will win the contest and bring back the prize." On the day of the contest, the sheriff of Nottingham was singing with glee.
Robin Hood will soon be in the jailhouse. I will capture him and you will see. Robin Hood has tried for the last time to make a fool, to make a fool, to make a fool of me.
On the day of the contest, as the crowds were gathering around, the sheriff's men were all on guard to see if they could find Robin Hood. And as the contest wore on, the men began to wear each other down until only 2 archers were left. The sheriff said, "Aha, now we will know who is the greatest archer of them all. There are but 2 men left to compete, Ellsworth and that ragged beggar. Shoot, Ellsworth, and show that beggar how it should be done," he shouted excitedly. Ellsworth shot his arrow right into the middle of the bullseye. "There, you beggar, see if you can beat that," shouted the sheriff. Robin Hood stepped up to the mark and confidently sent his arrow speeding to the target, splitting the arrow of Ellsworth in 2. The crowds went wild. The sheriff knew that there was only one man in the whole land who could have accomplished such a great feat. Excitedly, he shouted to his men to seize that beggar. Robin Hood was prepared for this and had his men waiting to aid him. The sheriff and his men chased Robin Hood deeper and deeper into the forest, but by Robin Hood's shrewdness, he was able to capture the wicked sheriff. When news reached the king about what the wicked sheriff of Nottingham had done to Robin Hood and his merry men, he ordered that Robin Hood and his men were to be let alone and allowed to do as they pleased because of what they had done to help all the poor, unfortunate people of the land.
We're the merry men of Sherwood Forest. We're as happy as can be. We have lots of fun till day is done as we sing so merrily, as we sing so merrily. Poor Cinderella
slaved all day. She never had time to have any fun. She never had time to play. Her two stepsisters were mean to her, and so was her stepmother too. That's why Cinderella was always lonesome and blue.
Yes, poor Cinderella worked and worked, never having any fun. You see, she was so very beautiful, and her stepmother and stepsisters were so very ugly that they were very jealous of her. All day long they would shout at her, "Cinderella, scrub the floors. Cinderella, make the beds. Cinderella, wash the dishes." One day the king of the land decided to have a big ball so that his only son, the prince, might find a suitable bride. Everyone went to the ball except Cinderella, and as she sat weeping by the hearth, a beautiful fairy godmother came from out of nowhere and said, "How would you like to go to the dance, my little Cinderella?" "Oh, I'd love to," replied Cinderella, "but I cannot go, for I have no clothes but these tattered rags I am wearing." With that, the fairy godmother touched Cinderella with a magic wand, and presto, Cinderella was dressed in the most beautiful gown anyone could ever see. All at once, the fairy godmother touched the pumpkin with her magic wand and turned it into a beautiful coach. Then she touched 4 mice, and they became 4 beautiful white horses. "Now, Cinderella, remember this. At 12 o'clock midnight, the spell will be broken, and all the beautiful things which you have now will turn into what they were before. So leave the ball before midnight." Then off to the ball went Cinderella.
Cinderella was the fairest of them all, the fairest of them all. At the ball, the prince fell in love with Cinderella. At the ball, the prince fell in love with Cinderella. At the ball.
Cinderella and the prince were so happy together that Cinderella forgot all about the time, when all at once the clock struck 12. Suddenly, Cinderella remembered that the spell would be broken, so she ran out of the ballroom, and in her haste lost one of her glass slippers. The prince ran after her, but she had vanished. Coach, horses, and all. The next day, the prince made a complete search of all the homes for his lovely princess-to-be. At last he came to Cinderella's house and asked the 2 ugly sisters to try the slipper, but they couldn't make it fit no matter how they pulled and tugged. In desperation, the prince said, "Is there no one else here who might try the slipper?" And as Cinderella came into the room, the sisters laughed, but the slipper fitted her perfectly, and the prince knew that at last he had found the one he loved, and soon they would be married.
Cinderella found her Prince Charming, the one she waited for. They lived happily for a lifetime. Who could ask for more? Cinderella, Cinderella, Cinderella.
I'm in a big, big hurry. I'm oh so late, so late. I have a date in Wonderland at 20 after 8. The King of Wonderland is waiting there for me. That's why I better hurry, hurry, hurry. Gosh, I'm late.
As Alice followed the funny little white rabbit, she found herself at the bottom of a deep rabbit hole. There she saw a long hall with many, many holes. Oh my, the doors are all locked! But nearby on a glass table, there was a golden key that fitted a very small door leading to a lovely garden.
"That door is much too small for me to crawl through,"
cried Alice. Then she saw a little bottle that said, "Drink me." And after drinking some, she grew smaller and smaller and smaller.
"Oh dear, now that I'm so small, I can't reach the golden key on the table that will open the garden door. What shall I do?"
She'd cried and cried, wondering how she could ever grow to her normal size again, when suddenly she saw a piece of cake that said, "Eat me." And she ate some, and soon she grew to her normal height again. Looking around, she saw a big grinning cat, and Alice said, "Which way should I go?"
"In that direction you will find the Mad Hatter, the March Hare, and the Little Dormeows."
How do you do, little Alice? How do you do today? We're glad to know you, Alice.
have a cup of tea, and then we'll all go out and play.
The Mad Hatter, the March Hare, and the Dormouse acted so silly that she soon left them and at last found herself in a lovely garden. As she wandered along, a parade of Wonderland soldiers came marching by. They were clubs, diamonds, and the King and Queen of Hearts, and they were on their way to the palace where the King and Queen were to try the Knave of Hearts for stealing some tarts.
The Knave of Hearts stole some tarts. Oh, what a shame. The Knave of Hearts stole some tarts, but who is to blame? Who is to blame?
At the trial, the Queen asked Alice what she knew about the stolen tarts. "I know nothing about the stolen tarts," and the Queen shouted, "Off with her head!" Oh, but Alice just laughed at them all. "I'm not afraid. You're only a pack of playing cards." And at that instant, they all flew towards Alice, and they grabbed her and shook her and shook her. And to her great surprise, she awoke to find her sister shaking her and calling, "Alice, dear, wake up, wake up. You've been sleeping a long, long time."
Alice was dreaming in Wonderland. She had a wonderful time. Alice is leaving Wonderland. Goodbye, little Alice, goodbye. Goodbye, little Alice, goodbye.